Jesus said, "Hear another parable. There was a landowner who planted a vineyard, put a hedge around it, dug a wine press in it, and built a tower. Then he leased it to tenants and went on a journey. When vintage time drew near, he sent his servants to the tenants to obtain his produce. But the tenants seized the servants, and one they beat, another they killed, and a third they stoned. Again he sent other servants, more numerous than the first ones, but they treated them in the same way. Finally he sent his son to them, thinking, 'They will respect my son.' But when the tenants saw the son, they said to one another, 'This is the heir. Come, let us kill him and acquire his inheritance.' They seized him, threw him out of the vineyard, and killed him." The parable of the wicked tenants, which we will hear at Holy Mass on Sunday. In this parable, the vineyard owner had fully equipped the vineyard with everything necessary ahead of time. He had developed it expertly. He had leased it to the tenants only when it was ready to produce plenty of wine annually. The tenants just had to put in their daily work. Of course, the tenants owed the landlord his rent, the portion they had agreed to pay when he leased the vineyard to them. Paying up would not have caused them any problems, provided they had worked diligently. They would have had plenty to live on, even after having paid the rent. We read in the parable about how the tenants not only refused to pay their rent, they even became murderous in their refusal to do so. What made them neglect their duty to the point of such violence? Had they gotten lazy? Had they failed to work like they should have and wound up with too little to pay the rent and also survive? Had they grown greedy, selfish? Did they want to keep it all for themselves even though they had more than enough? Did their greed make them resent the landlord's demand for his rent, even though he had every right to it? Maybe the explanation for the tenant's wickedness has to do with the landlord's absence from the vineyard. The tenants did not know where he was. They assumed that he sojourned far away. His role in their lives impressed itself upon them every day, since it was the landlord who had provided them this well-appointed vineyard in the first place. The landlord remained present there in the orderly rows of grape plants he had cultivated and the equipment he had built. But the tenants did not see the landlord. In their short-sightedness and self-centeredness, they grew to distrust him as an absentee. They resented him for going away, and they abandoned their loyalty to him. He has nothing to do with us, so we will have nothing to do with him. He does not deserve our rent payments. And when he sends emissaries to collect the rent, they deserve death. And now he has the temerity to send his own son, as if that will win us over? No way. We will relish killing the son and casting off the bitter yoke of this absentee landlord forever. There are two ways of looking at what God demands of us. When our souls rest in spiritual consolation and peace, we can perceive that Almighty God has given us everything and that he has done so freely out of his infinite love. All he asks is that we love him back, and he asks for our love not for his sake but for ours. By believing in God and loving him, we save ourselves from giving our hearts to something beneath our dignity. There's another way of seeing all this, however. It starts with, where is this God? Not here. We see nothing of him. Maybe, just maybe, he started this whole mess in the first place back at the Big Bang, but we have seen neither hide nor hair of him since. What's more, he's impossible to be friends with. When you give him a chance, he demands too much. For him to expect us to submit completely to his will and accept that his absence, his invisibility, is not only okay, but is actually for the best. He demands that we gaze at an ancient crucified carpenter and offer our entire lives to that man. We must be willing to die for such a dreamer as Jesus of Nazareth. Come on. Too much. Two perspectives on the one actual real God. Both perspectives 100% on the money. It is perfectly true that God demands nothing from us and only gives. He gives us the duties of religion only to benefit us. But it is also perfectly true that God demands the kind of faith and devotion that ultimately costs us everything. His demands are extreme. There is no middle way, no real way to hedge our bets. Either you go all in, bound to Christ unto death, or you wind up cursing God and hating him when the comforts of this passing life inevitably fade. All the exterior vineyard equipment in the parable represents the interior powers the Lord has given us to work with in this life so that we can live spiritual lives. We have inside us the capacity to seek the truth. We have the capacity to behold beauty. We have the capacity to love not just comfort, not just a full belly and a warm bed, but to love another human being for that human being's sake, to desire the happiness of another, not just my own. The good Lord equipped us to do these things with our souls. When we do them, we wind up producing plenty of produce. The more we bestir ourselves to seek the truth, the more zeal we have for it. The more we quiet ourselves to behold beauty, the more beautiful we ourselves become. The more selflessly we love, the more love we have inside ourselves. Then the rent that we owe seems like no burden at all. To give God the glory. We owe him everything. When we give him ourselves, he gives us much more back, much more than we had before.